and there's a structure that's there at 500 feet away from the, the takeoff flight path,
right.
air park,
right.
A grass strip, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's any number of airports that have structures within 500 feet of them, right? That you're
but
flying
it's
right
okay
over the
to break
top
it
of.
then, because that, except what's necessary for takeoff and landing is there, the kind of the umbrella concept. And
right.
then, but why? So when do you think it's reasonable that could be used effectively for a hot air balloon or a lighter than air aircraft to use that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
When it's the truth.
Right.
But instead of using it as a crutch to do something illegal or
right.
borderline illegal.
The hard part behind all this is, again, is it's all case by case. So in the decisions that we see, you're right, the FAA is pretty sneaky. The decisions that we see that are actual precedent are those that actually make it one step beyond a hearing with a judge. They're the ones that are appealed, right? Those are the ones that are public. Those are the ones that are precedential. And in a case where the FAA loses at the administrative law judge level, they're not going to appeal it, right? Because they don't want to set that bad precedent for future cases, right? Okay. So the only cases that we see are the bad ones, but the bad ones do illustrate for us that if the landing site you choose is not suitable, and there are cases, right? An example of a case that I'm pretty sure this was a hot air balloon, was a guy landing in a parking lot. He owned the store. It was a supermarket, I think, and he landed in the supermarket parking lot. Well, I don't even think he did land. He did a low approach nearby, and there's power lines in the way, right? And so he went away. Right? Did it go around in that situation? It turns out that the FAA said that was not suitable because it was a public parking lot. There was traffic in there. There was vehicles in the area. He had to go right over the top of some houses to get there. There was power lines, right? So the idea is that he should have never chosen that as a landing spot in the first place.
Okay.
Right. And again, that same logic applies to aircraft. Helicopters can, fall within that also, right? There's a guy that got in trouble in San Diego for flying his helicopter and trying to land downtown. And in that particular case, he even had a coordinated off section. He had police come, coordinate an off entire block. The experts at trial said that he had a descent profile that would have allowed him to auto rotate without hurting people, without endangering anyone. And he still got in trouble. It's still a violation.
So sometimes you just can't win.
Right. And that's the tough part about this. It's all case by case.
Is there any other
factually
examples
specific.
like that? Is there any other scenarios like that that
we have concrete examples of? Yeah, I mean,
it's just like it just can't win. Where it's like the majority of people will be like, "Yeah, duh, I see what was going on here," and he followed procedure, and that it's still the FAA is still like going after him.
Trent Palmer? Right? Yeah. So this is an odd example. This fellow was flying around in Alaska, and I should start this by saying, so we never got to the merits of the case on this one. And I shouldn't say we, it was like in the 80s. So there was no decision on the merits, but there was an appeal for, it's something called the Equal Access to Justice Act. So basically if the FAA comes after you and they take it to a hearing and you win, and the FAA is not substantially justified in bringing that action, you can ask the government to pay your attorney's fees. Makes sense, right? So we got to it was an EAJA hearing, and what the facts were is that this guy was flying around in Alaska over, snow covered. He was on skis looking for a place to land his Cub or whatever it was. There was a bend in the river, and he flew over some trees as he was approaching a straightaway. Unbeknownst to him, and where he couldn't see, is below the tree line, there was a snowmobile path. 4 snowmobiles that were right there. One of those snowmobilers turned out to be an FAA inspector. So this guy flies, 200 feet maybe away from them, above them, to find his landing spot. And it for other reasons, it turned out to be an unsuitable landing site, or that was the argument, right, is that the landing site was unsuitable. Again, we never got to the facts of it, but to the merits of the decision, I should say, but the FAA still brought a case. They still moved to suspend his license for, 120 days or something.
So that FAA inspector out on a snowmobile turned him in.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
What a D-bag.
Well, and this is in Alaska, where they know.
You're out in the middle of nowhere on a snowmobile in Alaska, and you're going to turn this guy in?
You can land on a road
like
up there. I mean, it's like... It happens all the time.
God, I feel
Everything
sorry
about
for
this
anybody who's related to that guy.
Right.
Guy's poor wife probably has to
And his
deal with-
kids.
Can you imagine?
His
Like, what a
kids.
little bitch.
Yeah. Your kids are going to grow up and
Right.
like, your dad is the biggest douche
Right?
ever.
Right?
Oh man. Okay. I had something that totally made me forget it.
So how does what we've discussed, like, I mean, I know there's, everything going on with this Trent Palmer situation.
Mhm.
How does that work into, like, I don't want to say, I'm going to say it obviously, but a case that you just can't win. Is this one of those? Or like,
Well, I don't really want to comment too much on the factual basis of it. I don't recall what's mentioned in the order or not, but the fact is in that case there were houses nearby, right? It wasn't like he was in a remote backyard, in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, it was a subdivision, right? It was like half developed, right? So one side of it was more or less vacant, the other side was not, and relied on or tried to rely on the necessary for takeoff or landing exception to the rule.
Well, Scott, you didn't know anything about this until today when you watched the videos, correct? I sent you.
I did.
So just as a casual person who just now was fresh, all this in your mind for the first time, could you summarize for anybody out in the airwaves who possibly doesn't know the Trent Palmer situation?
Okay, so he's just a guy with a kit fox flying around, and his buddy has a backyard, I guess, said it was an RC strip on it.
That he was trying to turn into a runway at some point?
Yeah, so he did a low pass to check it out and decided not to land there.
He had permission from the owner to
do it.
The owners weren't even there at the time.
Yeah, he did a low pass and decided not to land there, and then the neighbors had a video. I don't know, it's a security camera video or something.
sorry.
Yeah. I'll put the link. Brian from Just Plain City had a really good breakdown of it. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
I'm obviously not the best person to recount.
That's
Okay.
nuts.
That's the basics of.
Basically, I would have gone with the power failure defense.
Yeah.
Well, first off,
What is a road tax?
I would have gone with it.
It is a road tax.
First
Totally
off,
believable.
Okay, first off, I would have gone with it wasn't me defense.
That's red, white, and
number
blue
one.
kit
That's
fox.
number one
Right.
defense you always go to first. It wasn't me. So I would have used that until they produced the video, obviously, and once it was confirmed that it was me, then I would have gone with the power failure defense. And if that didn't work, I might have tried to go back to the it wasn't me defense.
No. You
Stole-
move on. No. Somebody
stole the plane.
Somebody stole my
Stole
plane.
my
right? Yeah.
You go, oh wait,
Yeah.
what date was that?
Yeah.
No, I didn't fly.
Yeah, I would just make a video of me at home, and then have somebody that knows how to edit video put the time and the date in the
Yeah,
corner of the
that's
video,
good.
and be like, "Oh, there's me watching TV, and it says right there the time and the date. I'm at home."
That's me
Right.
at home watching
So-
Trailer Park Boys.
So instead of trying to prosecute me, why don't you find the a-hole that stole my plane?
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to put a police report that it was stolen?
Well, I didn't know it was stolen until I saw the video of it.
Oh, crap.
Right. They put it back in the hangar.
You should call 911 right away.
Yeah, they put it back in the
Somebody's
hangar.
joyriding your plane.
Yeah.
They even cleaned it when they were done.
Are these
Got the
good?
bugs
And
off
they
the
topped
leading
it
edge.
off, and the fuel's topped off again.
He's
so weird.
He's probably thinking God, Scott should have been an aviation lawyer.
It should
I
be,
doubt
man.
he is saying that right now.
You should
Is that what you were thinking?
yeah, I think you should just do a Kim Kardashian and take the bar exam without going to school.
Did she do that?
ChatGPT.
No, I don't think
as
she
long
ever
as I
did.
can have my phone in there, I'll pass.
You're good.
Yep. Can I use my phone?
No, I mean, but
Well,
you do raise a valid
semi-aviation
point,
related.
man.
What's that?
I mean, you raise a valid point. The FAA has to prove, one element of all their cases is that you were the one that was flying. You were the pilot in command,
Right.
right? And,
So-
so if
Wasn't
you
me.
don't
Is
admit
Is it
it,
too late
right.
for him to say that?
Yeah,
Should he-
well,
could
I think this was in the order that he was contacted by the FAA shortly after this occurred, after the neighbors had produced that video, and he admitted that was him.
Oh, that was his
That's
first mistake.
Right.
Hang up the phone is your first go-to is
Exercise your pilot's bill of rights and refuse to make a statement,
yeah.
or politely decline to make a statement.
So, okay, every time I take a course, every time I do something, they talk about the pilot's Bill of Rights all the time. What's the breakdown? Where have you seen that actually be a good thing to know? Because I read it a couple times throughout my flying career, and I'm just like, every time I'm like, okay. But supposedly that's like a decent little document to know, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's a good idea to know what your rights are. By and large, there's really only two things that you need to know from it. One is that, it says that the FAA cannot draw an adverse inference or take an adverse action against you based on your refusal to participate in their investigation.
Oh,
means you have the right to remain silent. You can't
much.
exercise that, right?
What if he had just said, I don't know what you're talking about, and then refused to talk to them?
Then, well, I mean, then we go back to some circumstantial stuff, some direct stuff, right? Because we can, I don't recall if the video, you could identify the tail number or not, but, Trent's plane, the Kit Fox, is fairly unique. I think the FAA could circumstantially prove that it was his aircraft.
Repaint it.
So they had 300 YouTube videos leading up to this.
Right.
I don't know how to...
It's all circumstantial evidence.
I mean, you could go to a graphics designer do a vinyl wrap. That's why everybody do a vinyl wrap, so you just rip it off.
Rip it right off.
I always wanted to get big stick-on tail numbers.
Absolutely.
No, you don't do that.
Well, you got to register those.
Don't do that.
That's a bad idea. Removable tail numbers.
Okay, what about the vinyl paint scheme though? Like it was a white stripe, but now it's a black stripe.
I doubt we're going to get Ian to tell us.
The problem with that is
magic ink stuff.
These fake tail numbers.
I mean, the problem with that is that considered maintenance that you have to log in your aircraft's logbook? If it's an experimental, maybe not.
I'm going to go no.
If it's an experimental, maybe not. I think in a certificate, and this is where the FAA is kind of jacked up too, right? They say basically everything needs to be logged. You need to log.
Well, of course they do.
Well,
but a lot of airplanes get delivered from the factory with the wrong tail number, and then it goes overseas and gets that vinyl strip pulled off.
Well, that's different, right? In an export scenario,
because it's not in the United States anymore.
It's a temporary registration mark, and that too. Right. I mean, so you can put a temporary registration mark on your aircraft for import-export purposes before it's formally registered.
But it's still, for the most part, it's the same concept, though.
Right.
It's a piece of vinyl that weighs something, and I have to manually remove it.
Right. But I mean, the question is, should you put that in your aircraft logbook?
This happened in my life. What's that?
The question is, should you put that in your aircraft logbook, your maintenance logs?
The answer is, formally, yes, you should. In real practice, no, it doesn't.
Don't they have? I know you can buy magic ink where it only lasts for a couple of hours and then it goes away. So you can just paint some tail numbers on with that, and then
I think we're not into the tail numbers.
This is not.
I think we're not into the tail number
because
you still have to register that.
No. This is also that they don't know who it was.
Why would you just have the lack of a tail number then if you're going to do that?
Okay, paint over it with magic paint.
Why don't you just ratchet strap a ladders to each side that cover it?
That's not a bad idea. And then when the FAA comes, you'd be like, well, obviously I don't have ladders strapped to my plane, you psychos.
Somebody stole my airplane. It was a painter.
Right. Anyway. Somebody stole my airplane. That's all you need to say. Just remember that.
And then
I don't know if it was my airplane, somebody must have stolen it because it wasn't me.
The better advice is just don't say anything, right?
Yeah, probably.
Again, pilots both rights. We don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
Choose not to, right?
But what's the next step then after that?
If
you choose not to say anything, that's just an investigation, which they come up with what? In this scenario.
Well, what they say in their letters... Yeah, if you say nothing, what the FAA says is, they'll make a determination. Is it something that warrants further investigation? Do they suspect that, you were the pilot anyway? Then they issue you a letter of investigation, and part of that letter of investigation says that, you don't have to provide us a statement, but if you don't, we're going to process this report without the benefit of your input.
Okay.
Right, and so
that's up to you to weigh the benefit of your input versus what evidence they have or may have.
Right, and so there are circumstances where it's advantageous to explain to the FAA that, hey, to talk to them in the case of a mistaken identity, which absolutely does happen, or any number of other reasons why you would want to talk to them. But by and large, if it's a pretty serious issue, your best defense is going to be to say nothing.
Man, I would think it would be advantageous for me to say, no, that wasn't me. Next. Move on.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Or say, I don't think that was me.
No, I don't think that's my plane. I'd never put a road tax in my airplane. See,
well,
I
and
can
then,
point back
you
to
know,
these
then with the
podcasts
FAA
and be like, road tax? Are you kidding me?
I won't say his name. Our former employee's defense. Oh man, I don't know. I don't think that was me.
Oh, yeah.
It might have been me, but I don't think so.
Got us some class acts in the office.
But when he got drunk, borrowed a 4-wheeler, and wrecked it into a ditch, and then the cops came and he took off on foot and immediately called and reported it stolen.
It wasn't even his.
No.
It was your brother's.
Yeah. And the cops were they said his name because they knew who he was because the cop had seen him. And he just goes, so-and-so, are you sure that you want to report this stolen? And he was like, man, maybe I don't. I guess maybe not.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, so the cops actually went easy on him because they could have just let him file the false report and then tack that onto the charges. But they stopped him.
Technically, it was stolen from an airport, so I guess it's somewhat relevant to the show.
Yeah.